What's up, Springfield? This is Noah Doughty here with Coach Guerriero here at Live at Tigers Table. Coach, we're halfway through the year, a little over halfway, week 6 coming up. What's it like being halfway through the season already?
Well, right now I feel so far that our team has progressed over the first 5 weeks, starting out with a tough non-league schedule. I feel pretty positive in what the direction our team's going right now. I think we're playing pretty good football right now, when we're starting to just make sure we focus on the small things, offensively and defensively. And now we just got to make our tweaks from week to week and just try to continue to build. The offensive playbook, the defensive playbook, just so we need things. End up having them.
Yeah, and like you said, you had that tough non-league schedule early on. The schedule is starting to, you kind of find your rhythm. You won 71-0 this week against Mathews. What were your thoughts on that game? What did you like from that?
Well, right now, just the way our kids came out and competed. Right now I think our defense is playing very well. To end up going to Mathews, it's still a good travel for us, just to prepare our team, for those little things if we end up getting into the playoffs and continue to win. So I like the way they came out. I like the way we executed offensively. I still think that our special teams continue to get better from week to week. And then with that, we were able to play a lot of kids and try to gain some depth, over last week. So I just feel positive right now in the direction that we're going.
Well, since you mentioned special teams, that was something I wanted to bring up. You've had 2 games in a row now. You guys have blocked punts resulting in touchdowns. And you seem like you're clicking on the special team side of the ball in terms of field goal or extra points. And even the punt team's doing a pretty good job. Do you feel like that helps you give you some relief in some of these games, knowing that you can rely on your special teams?
Well, I think that's one thing we do as a staff. Every day we designate 15, 20 minutes towards our special teams game. And when you end up, I think, doing that, hopefully we're going to see results and making sure that we continue to get better. We go through our schedule and we go through each special team. And like I said, we usually spend about 10, 15 minutes on one. And on Thursday, we go through all of them. So I think that's something that we have, our kids take pride in. Those are all one-play series that end up, making a big play. So with that, and fortunate enough, we were able to score touchdowns on both of the block punts that we end up having. But those are things where you just try to end up, continue to build. Being able to have tools in the toolbox, and whether it's block punts, I think this was the first time we had a kickoff return that went past the 50. Our goal was always on kickoff to get a couple tackles inside the 20. To play field position and do that. So right now I just feel like the time that we put in, we're starting to see results of the special teams game.
Absolutely. And going back to the game against Mathews and the game before against Waterloo, that's 2 straight shutouts for you guys. And that's shutouts when you guys are playing high-scoring offense. What's it like trying to keep that defensive intensity going when the offense is putting up so many points on the board, just staying focused on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, I'm going to kind of tip my hat to Coach Slopek, who's our DC. He stays on the kids, and like I said, we do practice hard, but I do think that comes for our kids. I know that's a goal for every week for our kids, to make sure that we have a shutout or keep the points. I think it's 14 or below is one of our goals, but if we can end up keeping their score low, obviously it's going to give us a better chance to win the game. So I really put that on ownership of the kids, because no matter who's in the game, whether where we're able to get some younger kids in the game and playing, but our kids take pride in that and trying to keep that 0 on the scoreboard.
And I think one way they're doing it is, and I've noticed you have a lot of ball hawks on that defensive side of the ball. Even if it's not an interception, when there seems like there's an opening for the other team to attack on offense, that gets closed up pretty fast with your linebackers or safeties or corners coming in to close off those holes. Is that just something that you guys emphasize in practice, making sure they know where the ball is at all times? Or?
Well, I do. There's things that we work on and we practice, whether we're man or zone. And I still think that comes down to our front, because you think about, like you just said, that the people in the secondary that, that are able to find the ball and get to it. But I think the pressure that we put on, by our front 4 or 5 up front, if they get a good pass rush, then the quarterback's not ready to throw. And then it kind of forces him to make, hopefully, a bad decision or a bad throw, which obviously will end up, increasing our chances to get an interception or a deflection or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and I think you talk about the defensive line. I think both sides of your line recently in the past couple games, they've done a great job. On the offensive side, you're getting holes for your backs. You've had a great rushing attack against the last couple weeks. And I think that starts with the offensive line, just being able to find those holes.
I do, and I know everybody says this, but that's when you're going to win games with the guys up front. And I still feel that we have defensively, we have a good rotation of those guys to keep some of those guys fresh. Offensively, we were fortunate enough, to keep those guys rotating in or keep, our same group of kids in the ball game. So those guys up front create holes. I know with our front line, you got to include Jake O'Donnell, our tight end, in that. Jacob Lample is really starting to come around and play good football too, as who is our other tight end. So right now, and when you're able to do that, we can come out in 4 wide, we can come out in double tight 2 back. So I just think that it makes teams prepare for a lot for the thing. But up front, those guys are doing a great job.
I also think one thing that helps you guys is your running backs. They look so patient in the backfield. Sometimes you see, whether it's Gentile or anyone else, you see them, they don't immediately hit that first opening here. If it's there, they'll take it. But I see a lot of patience back there. You'll see them start going to the left, and then the next thing you know, the play's 30 yards down the field on the right side. And
well, I would say with that too, and we end up working on those things, and I think you have to. We try to coach it where we want our guys to get 4 yards, and if you stay on course and you stay, downhill, I think there's something where those guys have done a good job, because it's about getting 4 yards, and then if you have the chance to make the cut and get through the line, you can do that. And I think, our main 2 backs right now are Kaysen and Dante, that are doing extremely, great job of doing it. But even with those guys now coming in, and I don't know how many guys ended up touching the ball on Friday. We had a lot of kids touch the ball. I bet you we probably had 6 or 7, whether you're playing fullback or tailback, and handle the rock. So I feel like those guys are getting good quality reps, and then you can see how it works, and they're hitting the hole hard.
And the only one thing I think you guys have played, at least the last 2 weeks, you guys have played some great football. One thing I noticed early in the first half, there's been some bad penalties in the first 2 games. I know you had that one holding that brought back a touchdown. I think the very next play against Mathews, though, they ran it. They just got an extra 10 yards on the run for the touchdown. Is that something that you've noticed, some penalties early on?
Well, I think we did, and I think our kids play hard, and they try to, they're giving 110%. So I think on that, that stuff's going to end up happening. Like you said, the one thing on the holding call, I think the next play we ended up busting and scoring again. So it's good, because in the future, I always tell our kids we don't want to put the game, into the hands of the official, but those things are going to happen, and I don't mind seeing that right now. I end up seeing our kids have a little adversity and make sure that we can fight back and see if we can, gain a first down off of that. So I just feel for our kids. That stuff's going to happen throughout a game just because of our kids' mentality or how hard they play. So if we do get the choice or they do get a penalty, we just got to make sure that we make up for it next play. And
as long as the kids are staying aggressive out there, that's something that you're looking more importantly at.
Yeah, I don't. Right now it hasn't been a problem for us. We've been penalized too much. So I'd still like the kids giving great effort and getting, the hands on the inside. And sometimes with that, you're going to see a penalty here and there.
And the one thing also with you were talking about just getting the adversity, coming back with that one touchdown run after he got called back. You have 2 games that were kind of blowout games at the end, and you haven't had that experience yet. Well, you did against Geneva, but other than that, you haven't had too many close games. How is that something that you could try to simulate in practice? Because as you go down the stretch of the season, you're going to be hopefully in the playoffs too. You're going to be in these situations where the games might get tighter. And is that something you try to simulate in practice, or?
Well, I think right now, just because of the situation that we're at, I still feel like we have a lot of kids. We're having over 60 kids on the team. There's a lot of competition that goes on through Monday through Thursday. So when you end up seeing that, there's times where, if kids don't stay on it or they are not practicing hard, we can put somebody else in. And I feel like that pushes our kids, just being able to have the depth, or to be able to say, if somebody's having a bad day, we got to get somebody else in there right now. And I think with the numbers that we have, it's really up the competition level where our kids come out and practice hard, Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday, we end up doing that. So with the depth that we have and the kids that we can rotate in, I think the kids feel like they have to be on top of their game, to be able to stay into the game.
Internal competition that you guys have at practice is kind of what simulates it.
It's something for our kids where they got to be on it. We got to be consistent in what we do and be able to execute. So with that, I think the kids, like I said, I think the kids put that kind of on themselves and making sure that they're doing their job, because I know, and I talk to our kids all the time, it doesn't mean if you start week 1, doesn't mean you're going to start week 10. So the competition level is up, all year for us. And if we get a kid who progresses throughout the season, they will get more playing time.
Absolutely. I think we saw that on in the run game too. Just the way you've been getting more people involved in the run game and earlier in the game, you definitely you like. I think you like what you see from your backs so far. Is that fair to say?
Oh, I do. I think we got a good variety. Like I said, we already mentioned Dante and Kaysen, and Joey Senafani. You got Noah Trogio, some younger kids that are doing it. Then we even got some fullbacks. They're starting to touch the ball with Wyatt Kuboff, Davin McKinney, Evan Miracle. So we got a good group of kids that I feel like that we can count on and end up giving the ball to. Or, our fullbacks, I think, kind of do the dirty work for our backs right now because they're kicking out.
Your fullbacks, you do a great job of getting them involved in the blocking schemes more than anything.
Well, they're almost like pulling guards in our offense. So, between Wyatt, Davin, and Evan, I feel like they do a great job because they don't get a lot of credit. They're not going to get a lot of touches, but they do a heck of a job in kicking out and pulling through and doing those little things right, where they take pride into that. And that's something with our kids where we always talk about, too, of making sure you're doing your job and making sure, that they have to end up being able to perform for our backs to be able to shine.
And looking ahead now, you have Jackson-Milton this week. They're 5-0 on the season coming in. What are you looking for this week? How do you approach this going into this game?
Well, for us, obviously, we're going to see Jackson-Milton, who's going to come in and do a lot of different things offensively. They have a lot of different people touch the ball. They line up a couple different kids at quarterback, so we need to make sure that we get lined up and we know exactly what we're doing. We got to be gap sound. We can't. They still run a lot of misdirection with that too, so we can't be fooled with misdirection and anything of that nature. We just got to make sure that we don't try to do too much defensively. That we continue to, do our job and hold our gap. And we always tell our kids, we have to be able to run to the football defensively for good things to happen. For those guys to be able to get to the ball, whether it's a late fumble or a late turnover, anything of that nature. So I want to make sure our kids know that and understand that. So they're going to have a lot of people, doing a lot of different things. So we just got to be able to make sure we get lined up, know what we're doing, and play fast. Offensively, for us, they're going to give us a couple different looks. They move and they stunt and they angle a lot, so that will be challenging for our kids. That we really haven't seen that. A lot this year, but this is another thing with our kids. I think our scout team so far, going through until Tuesday. Today, our scout team did a phenomenal job of lining up, making move calls, moving with the defense, jabbing at them, yelling. I think they'll make move or shift calls for that. So I really put the ownership on our scout team, and those guys really don't get their names called at all, unless they get the opportunity to play. But our scout team kids play hard, day in, day out.
And this intensity that you're kind of preaching right now, is that something, going down the stretch, you have a couple conference games left, you have these kids, when I talk to them, they're all looking – They have a feeling that this could be a big year for them, but you have to get through the season. You have to take each game one at a time. Is that just something you're keeping in their mind?
Our kids know it starts with one game at a time, so we can't end up thinking, obviously, with a team that's obviously with a record of 5-0 coming in. Obviously, they got to be the number one team in our league, and that's one of our team's goals. And we've talked about that as winning the league. So I think right now we got to make sure that we stay focused one game at a time, and that we're not looking forward. And I think our kids do that. Plus, we try to challenge them with putting a couple new wrinkles in. Like I said, talked about building our playbook. So obviously we're going to have a couple different things ready for Jackson-Milton for a little bit of change that maybe we haven't shown or maybe we can end up doing. But our kids got to come out with great intensity and be able to take on this challenge.
And the last thing I got to ask you, Coach, just a little off the field. When listening to these player interviews, they love to shout out your carpentry class. What is it like being able to have these kids both on the field and in the classroom and get to know them even more throughout the years?
Well, that's one thing I try to do is you want to be able to build relationships with the kids. That's something I kind of take pride in. It's something you got to get to know the kids. And I feel like, overall, even with my staff, that we have a good relationship for our kids. And they know at times that there might be a little bit of time where we're going to get on them and we're going to coach them hard and it might get yelled at a little bit. But I think overall we do like to have fun with the kids. But that carpentry class is something that they kind of started a couple years ago. And the kids, when they're taking stuff home, whether it's, gifts for their parents or somebody in their family, or we're going and doing something for the school or the community right now, we're kind of we got a shed up right now for our PTO. So it's just to make sure the kids understand it. We got to show appreciation and and appreciate the people that support us. So it's gone very well. The kids end up liking it. It's new. So with that, whether it's, I mean, sometimes it makes me nervous when kids are running saws and things of that nature, but it's been a fun class for us. It's been a great experience, and the kids have done a good job. So I make sure that that's another thing with our kids, that same thing we talk about football as you relay. We got to make sure we pay attention to detail in the games. That's the same thing with working a circular saw or a chop saw or whatever we end up doing. So those kids got to make sure that they understand their surroundings and making sure they're doing the right thing. So it's been a fun class for us, and it's been something where I think the kids look forward to too. And obviously, if it's one of the better periods of their day, that we try to make it fun, and I try to let the kids open up too. I try to let them use their creativity when we do stuff, and to make sure that it kind of relates a lot of different things. When we came in, the kids are like, well, we really don't know it. Then we're using math, or we're using geometry, and we're learning. So it kind of relates a lot of different subjects with that too, where the kids are kind of like, I never thought I'd use this again. And now we're finding the area of doing a floor or measuring balls, or doing
absolutely.
that. So it's been a good experience for our kids, and I think they've enjoyed it.
I think that's something that resonates just from talking to the kids, the relationships you get to build with them. And I can tell it means a lot on the senior class and the players that played with you previously. And like I said, everyone talks about that carpentry class. So I had to mention it to you on the show. We're here at Tigers Table with Coach Sean Guerriero. Coach, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.